What up, man? Zach Gilbert here from Midnight Mass. Here's the deal. That was a very special project to me. One of the things I'm most proud of. Kind of crazy. We were supposed to start shooting right around now. We were supposed to start shooting March, I think it was 17th or 13th or something, 2020. And then obviously the world shut down because of COVID. So we didn't shoot for like 5 months. We went back in July. And all our sets were there. They've been on the water and the Vancouver weather, just getting beaten. So I think it really added a lot to that show, like the production value. Like it really looked like an old fishing town because it'd been sitting there like an old fishing town. Great people, great actors. Mike Flanagan, amazing. I've been honored to work with him on anything I've done with him. It's a hard shoot, pretty emotional, a lot of heavy stuff going on in that show. And I'm glad you like it. But here's the deal. I know you're probably sitting at home right now looking at your phone. But just a little bit of advice, dude. Don't go out there. Don't go out there.
They've conquered the big screen. Now, get ready for the spin-off sure to send chills down your spine. It's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin in Don't Go Out There, the series.
Welcome back, everybody, to DGOT, the series. We really appreciate y'all listening. We hope y'all have been enjoying these series reviews. I know we have. It's been a lot of fun. Just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on the website. All of our episodes and interviews, if you want to check those out. We've done some incredible interviews in the past. Go check them out there in a specific tab by themselves so you don't have to scroll through hundreds of episodes on Apple or Spotify, etc. We also have our store if you want to grab a shirt, a mouse pad, a hat, all that good stuff. We'd love to see your pictures, rep your favorite podcast. And Shan's Etsy page is also attached if you want to grab a tumbler. All of our social media links are on there as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Like us, subscribe us, follow us, all that good stuff. And the last thing I want to shout out on our website is our Patreon. We call it Blood Donors. We have the traditional monthly reoccurring kind. If you want to support us, help us pay the bills, as we say. Or if there's a movie you want us to review, that option is available as well. Just check out our website, don'tgooutthere.com. Also, if you haven't noticed, we've recently joined the Believe Network. So there's some ads on our program now. But if you want ad-free content, go check us out on Blood Donors. The ad-free episodes will be available there. We appreciate your support.
We're recording on Sunday. We just got home from a morning mass. We're going to talk about midnight mass now. We are doing episodes 3 and 4. Brian, you want to give your general thoughts on 3 and 4 before we get into them?
Yeah, we hit the halfway point for this series, and things really start to kick up, especially at the end of episode 3, and really just carrying into part 4. Another 2 great, fantastic episodes. Honestly, you brought him up during our bonus, but Hamish Linklater just continues to kill it and steal the show. But we get some other really fantastic scenes with Robert Longstreet as well. Some really big reveals, and I haven't actually talked to Nico since the reveals, so I'm anxious to hear what he thinks now that we're into vampire territory.
All right, I'll go. And I binged the whole season last week, or maybe the week before, whenever the fuck I did it. I don't know, it was on Sunday. But anywho, I got a horror hot take. I think Midnight Mass is just good. I don't think it's great personally, and I'm sorry to say that. But I just think every episode is like 10 minutes too long. Like, I think the monologues lose me. They get too long, and I'll touch on that throughout the scene by scene. But I'll give 3 characters big credit. Joe Colley by Robert Longstreet. I love his character. I don't want to butcher the man's name. Is it Hamish Linklater?
Hamish.
Obviously, as Paul, fantastic. I am captivated every time he's on screen. And Bev, Samantha Sloyan. I didn't even realize that was, I can't remember his name. I think it was Michael from Haunting of Hill House. That was his wife from that series. I think she's absolutely fantastic as well. But it's the other characters that just lose me, where I'm just not invested as I should be. And I'll touch on that throughout the scene by scenes. But I think Midnight Mass is solid. I just didn't connect with the whole series like I did Hill House. Like, it didn't have that emotional pull on me. Maybe it's just because it's a religion thing and it ventured into vampire territory. But I still think it's good. I just didn't think it was elite, if that's fair. But Mike, if you want to go next, your general thoughts, go ahead.
I can understand that take. So I'll touch on the vampire stuff in episode 4 because I do have some thoughts about that. But I'll save it for then. Overall, I really like these episodes, and I mean, I really like episode 3. Like, I think there's a lot of good there. I talk about it a lot in my notes for that episode, but the acting performances in these 2 episodes really do stand out. You guys have already hit on it, but Mish Linklater, I actually think underrated here would be, and I hate to butcher people's names, but Raul Coley, the sheriff, in episode 4 does a phenomenal job a couple different times with what he's given. I think he's great. Obviously, Samantha Sloyan is fantastic. And I actually really like the supporting cast, man. I like Henry Thomas as Ed Flynn. He has a very good emotional dialogue scene in these 2 episodes that I think he carries really, really well. I mean, there's just a lot of really good character work in these 2 episodes. And I actually like in episode 3, and I touched on it at the end, we get away from our main 2 in that episode a lot, where we're really more focused on everyone else in the town. And I think that was kind of a nice deviation. You know, we kind of know a lot about Riley and we know a lot about Aaron, and we get back to them in episode 4. But I think episode 3, it was kind of nice to step outside of that and learn what's really going on in this town now. And I think those reveals worked for me. Now, I will say something I talked about when I first watched it. There does end up being, I think we all know how I feel about vampires as a villain. They don't do a whole lot. Okay. God, I'm allowed to like one, and I like this series. I'm just telling you, they can make me disconnect slightly if I think about it for too long. I'm like, oh, fucking vampires. But everything else around this is so good, I don't care. Same with Abigail. Like, I can have a good time with Abigail. Like, it's well acted, well made. Like, there's other vampire movies that I don't feel that way about. But anyway, long story short here, I thought they were 2 really outstanding episodes, especially episode 3. I'm a big fan.
I cannot wait to pick Twilight. I'm doing it. I'm picking Twilight eventually.
No, don't do that, because I'm not even going to support your vampire pick with that one. Come on.
I'm not saying that I love Twilight. I think
what are we doing? We still have good ones to pick.
it was culturally important. Okay,
They will hate.
Why do you want to make me suffer?
So pick that one.
I'll pick it too. Because you just fired me up on an early Sunday afternoon with that bonus episode.
Didn't do it.
Anyway, episode 3 and 4 I think are fantastic. I think episode 3 and 4 are the best 2 episodes we've got so far. I think they're better than the first 2. We get to the nitty gritty of what's going on in the story. And I remembered, last episode I said it bothered me that they had a young actress playing old hag Mildred. But I was like, oh yeah, I remember now. But
was that our IMDb name?
Yeah, it was crazy. It said old hag Mildred. But I think that these 2 are fantastic, and the story's coming together nicely. And man, I got a gut punch because we see Joe. He's trying so hard to right his wrongs, and he never gets to see it come to fruition. He never gets to become the better person that he wants to be. And that was a gut punch. I'm not saying that I necessarily like Joe's character. I'm not saying that I just like so quick to forgive that he shot and paralyzed a little girl, although it was by accident.
Exactly.
I have in my notes that it bothers me how the whole town just shuns him and acts like he's this super villain. Dude, it was an accident.
Right.
But the fact that he was trying so hard and got so far, but in the end, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
I thought these 2 episodes are great.
Yep, absolutely. Does anybody have anything else before we jump into book 3, Proverbs, which is not book 3, as Dustin pointed out? All right, let's get it. We open in the church as we get a quick title card and see Father Paul walk into the confession booth to give his own confession, saying, "Forgive me, Father, for I am going to sin." This man is me for real. There we find out some more about Monsignor Pruitt and his whereabouts. That old fuck is not recovering on the mainland, but he will say he is for the town's own benefit. This confession we soon see, came the day before he helped Lisa walk again. And of course, Bev, even while all struck by this miracle, notices something is wrong with Father Paul. When he walks back to the rectory to compose himself after Lisa's first steps, she follows, hearing him retch up blood. My man needs to hydrate. I'll just throw that out there. She also sees a photo on the wall that stops her in her tracks. But damn it, Flanagan is not going to let us know just yet what's going on. We cut to Dr. Sarah's office where she's trying to figure out how the ever living fuck this girl can walk. Her parents believe it's a miracle, but Sarah isn't buying this. She wants to do more tests and send her to the mainland, but her parents admit they're broke as fuck and dip out while Sarah finds her mother upstairs talking about chlorophyll. Man up babbling on about God knows what, and all she talk about is making out with me. I'm here to learn. Sorry, Billy Madison reference there, Nico. We cut back to Father Paul's Hogwarts shack of witchcraft and sorcery, and we have multiple people lined up wanting a miracle. And Bev on the porch telling them to get on out of here. At AA later that evening, Riley wants to know what the fuck is going on, and he can rationalize that it was a misdiagnosis, but that doesn't explain how Paul knew she could walk. But Father Paul says a spiritual answer won't suffice, he could just feel it. And then we see Lisa crip walk into the school where Miss Green awaits everyone, and we cut back to the Flynn household where Ed is feeling a little frisky, and he and Annie start to cut a rug.
Man, you fired up in that first set of scenes. Hell yeah. All right, I'm going to, drop some big time review talk. Link later as Paul continues to impress with these long bits of dialogue. I think he's a captivating speaker, and if you told me he was a priest in real life, I would believe you. I think he's great.
Yeah.
Interesting reveal that Father Pruitt has dementia or something like that. I wonder if that comes into play later. I don't think I spoke on this last episode, but I love the setting of this small island town. It feels like community while feeling like isolation all at once, so I appreciated that quite a bit. What's up with Father Paul puking up blood? Like, that's not good. I agree with you. I don't know if it's hydration, gut health. I don't know what's going on with his brother, but he needs to get that checked out. But imagine being Lisa and her parents at this doctor's office. She's able to walk after being in a wheelchair for so long. I couldn't even imagine like those emotions, those feelings as her parent, as her. I wouldn't be able to process that, honestly. Tough times here on Crockett Island, though. The mayor needs SNAP benefits. Sheesh, what kind of minimum wage they paying these people? This is very believable. A community sees a miracle, so they all gather seeking a miracle for themselves. You could definitely see that happening in a small town. Interesting conversation between Riley and Paul. But isn't this an AA meeting? They're not on topic at all. They're just talking about the girl being healed. Cool to see all the students following behind Lisa, figuratively making her the leader for the day. I like that. Ed visibly looks younger and is more nimble, noticing his lessened back pain. I'll touch on this more later, but how did they not notice they all look so much younger? I thought it was a decent opening, especially with Paul.
Still muted.
Fucking space bar, you're supposed to be able to hold the space bar and
There we go.
unmute yourself. Well, it did, and then it fucking muted me again. So go fuck the space bar up the ass. Anyway, back to talking about the Lord here for Midnight Mass. It may.
Does it have
may.
one?
You don't know what inanimate objects have, but anywho. Now, I will say throughout the first two episodes, we had some hints that Paul wasn't on the up and up, right? But I actually, and I touch on it in another set of scenes more, I really like this backstory for Pruitt and taking us out of Crockett for just a little bit, right? I mean, it's basically, Monsignor Pruitt going to the Holy Lands, and I really like the story and development that we end up getting there. And just given the show and the set pieces we've had so far, which is not that many, I just kind of forget that this was a view that we get of Monsignor Pruitt, like I mentioned. It, and again, it kind of teases a reveal of what's about to be fully revealed about Paul and Pruitt and all that stuff. But could you kind of touched on this, Nico, could you imagine being in that church when this girl walks? I don't know how I would react. Like, I think I would maybe pass out. Like, I'm not saying, like, again, we see it on movies and stuff, but like, if you put yourself in this setting and it happened in a church where, the Bible has its miracles and things like that, like Nico mentioned, yes, I could definitely see a full town kind of energizing itself around that. Like, well, if it's happening to her and now other stuff is happening to members of the town, which is touched on in both episodes here, I would also kind of like, well, what's going on here? Like, I would feel energized by that. And by the way, fuck Bev, man. She can't butt out for 5 fucking minutes. She's all up in Paul's business. I can't stand this bitch. How you feel about Maggie Hart is how I feel about Bev. And I want to say Samantha Sloyan does a great job of making me hate her. Great job. And by the way, I can completely understand where Lisa's parents are coming from in the doctor's office, right? I mean, doctor wants them to kind of run more tests, and they're like, "Look, the girl can walk. We're fucking broke. Like, I ain't coming back here if I don't have to, dog." Like, it's kind of like the DMV. Hey, follow up visit. Nah, I'm not coming back. I got what I need. I'll be back in the next 5 years when you need me to come back. Like, same situation there. They've been there. It's so often they don't have the money. I don't blame them. Again, I really do like these scenes where Riley and Paul, and I touched on episode 2, are just talking. It feels like a play. If I'm watching the episode, it feels like there's a bunch of moving parts and a lot of action. And then you kind of get a break in a play where it's just two characters talking and having a little bit of exposition, letting us know what's going on, moving the story along. And I really like that, that these two have such a great dialogue back and forth in these AA meetings that they're having. Again, like last week, I get Riley's skepticism, but I would calm down for a few here and be a little more humble. Now, he's right to be suspicious of Paul here, but at the same time, like we just saw a miracle, I do genuinely feel like this Paul guy at one point was trying to help people, maybe, but I'll save that for episode 5 because I also rewatched all the episodes this past week. I'll save that for episode 5. We don't know what's wrong with Ed Flynn yet, but obviously he's had some ailments, but now he's up and he's dancing with his wife. And I felt like that scene did so much to bring light to this dark and gloomy show. Typically, a scene of fun, a scene of dance. I enjoyed that break there. And, again, those two in particular deserve it more than most. That's all I had. I thought it was a good intro, but I think after the dance is really where the episode picks up.
Yeah, I think there's good stuff with the open, despite the misleading title, like you said, Brian. I mean, Proverbs is book 20, not book 3. But anyway, Paul making a confession about lying to the congregation. For a brief moment, we assume the worst about him here, but then it pivots to him telling a white lie to protect them. And then we cut back to the miracle of Lisa walking, and it's a great scene. The way it's shot in silence and slow motion for a bit, that was very effective. And it's very understandable that the whole island would be coming by looking for a miracle now. I thought that was portrayed very well as well. And so was Riley's skepticism. Also very believable that every kid in school would be bombarding her with questions. And it's a big development when Ed's back stopped hurting to end the solid open.
Absolutely. We open the next set of scenes with Lisa knocking on Warren's window, and she starts to spin and dance, and I'm starting to question if she was just faking it the whole time. We cut to Riley in bed with a list of people, and he looks over to the zombie ghost of Tara Beth, and he's out of there. He's heading to Aaron's house, who had coffee waiting for him on the porch, and listen, it's dark, man. That coffee's going to keep you up all night, Riley Flynn. We see a montage as others who are feeling the effects of Father Paul too. Sarah's mother's hip is better. Riley's mom doesn't need her glasses. Ed's back is healed. And suddenly, Lisa is running. The island's coming back to life, one cured ailment at a time. And just as another sermon begins, Warren walks back into the back room and sees Father Paul adding some more juice to the cup. I don't know what the cup's called, but I definitely know that was a flask he was pouring from. But during the sermon, Paul tells the packed church that God gives mysteries that can't always be explained, not miracles. He can't even explain them himself, and during his sermon, he passes out. We flash back to his confession, and he's telling the story of Saul becoming an apostle Paul after speaking with Jesus. The story then merges with that of Monsignor as we see him wander off for what Paul says is the last time and finds an ancient ruin. It's a light that draws him in, or maybe it's just a light from the doctor. As we get a jump scare of such, Dr. Sarah shining a light in his face. Timelines are getting blurred now, and we're back on the island. Sarah tells him that he's dehydrated, and he tells her that he's proud of her, a compliment that seems odd and out of place. We cut to Joe's trailer and hear intense knocking as a pissed-off Joe answers it and is taken aback as Lisa invites herself in and turns the TV off. She wants to chitty-chat about that day, and we get a beautiful scene between two incredible actors. She says she didn't feel it, but the not feeling was what scared her the most, even more than her dad's howls. I hate you, she tells him, and yet she is willing to forgive him. She says that she has been healed, and she's decided to pay it forward, allowing Joe a chance to heal too. She finishes it up by saying, the only thing standing in my way was hate. She tells him, The only thing standing in your way is you.
Also, the cup is called a chalice.
Chalice.
All right. I got a hot take right off rip. I want to see what you guys react. Lisa has been healed for a short time and already sneaking out the house. To quote the second greatest shooting guard of all time, Michael Jordan, unreal. I'm
Come on,
joking.
man.
I'm joking. I did not
Come
mean
on,
that.
man.
Just trying to get a reaction out of you guys. Hey, we're just bouncing. I'm just messing with these guys. But for real, she's just now been able to start walking. She's already sneaking out the house. These kids ain't worth a damn. She needs her ass beat already. This montage scene, to me, it drags and is way too long, in my opinion. Bitchy Bev puts the poison back in the closet very sneakily. I've got my eyes on her. Like, I think we already know she's a villain, but she's bouncing around and doing some bad things around this joint. I know that gesture, Ed. When a lady is pulling you by the hands, you about to get laid, old boy. You need to be running with her. Brian, you're a husband. Can you confirm or deny that? He's shaking it. All right,
Hashtag.
see? Hashtag confirmed. Altar boy catches Paul spiking the communion wine and doesn't even think anything of it. What a dummy. Like, you just falling for everything this guy's doing? Linklater continues to give an outstanding performance. He's very captivating as a priest, and I think he gives one of the best performances I've seen in a show and on film. I give Paul props. You could tell he didn't feel good, but he kept preaching. No soft hands here. Serious question. How does an 80-year-old priest wander off all alone into a desert? Didn't they say he was in a group? How did that even happen? The light jump scare for me felt a bit unnecessary. It's just a minor nitpick. I do disagree with you, Brian, though, a little bit with this part. When Linklater says you are a comfort to people, to me, that's an incredible compliment to a small town doctor. I would really appreciate hearing that just because I'm the only person there. Like, that would be nice for me to hear because you can kind of feel like you're just being used and not appreciated. So I liked it. This scene between Joe and Lisa is exceptional. These two have a troubled history and it's addressed in a very emotional, touching way. It's one of my favorite scenes of the show.
Hey, what I meant was by that seeming odd and out of place was where he said that he was proud of her. I kind of take that with what we were kind of implied in the next episode that I don't want to spoil.
Oh, it's definitely that's what
I got
it
you.
is.
Okay, that makes
that's
sense.
what it is. For sure. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
They're definitely hinting at something, and they did at the little festival they had too. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
As I talked about last week, this is another one of those scenes where we get a lot of what's happening set to a musical backdrop, right? We're kind of cutting in on all the characters of the town that we've gotten to know and set to music. Now, normally it's a hymnal, but this time it's the record that Ed is playing. And I understand that you mentioned that it goes long. It goes a little longer than the other ones have so far, but I do like what we get. We get a lot without having to sit through 30 minutes more of dialogue to kind of make the episode fit in that hour time frame. I liked it. And I liked that we kind of peeking on Lisa, and it's sad when you think about it, but she didn't have the confidence to go after him and kiss him or any of that when she couldn't walk. Now she's for lack of a better term, born again in that way. And I think her character as the series goes kind of touches up. I'll save it, but anyway. But then we get Riley writing down a list, and that's a big hint if you've seen the rest of the series, like of what that list is, what's to come. Very interesting. They just kind of show it just for a second. If you pay close enough attention, Riley's writing down people's names. Again, more people are showing up to church now, right? I mean, again, the town is reinvigorated from a religious standpoint. And then we have Bev pretty much revealing that's their way of revealing that Bev killed the dog without actually having to do it. I mean, look, putting the poison away, I think we all kind of knew that anyway. But anyway, I agree with you, Nico. When Paul speaks, and this is, a tip of the cap to the acting, it's really easy to see how someone that has a youthful presence about them, their passion, those things, how that message could come across so well where like, yeah, I'd love to hear this guy continue to speak. And so I think he does a great job. If you told me he was a real father in a church, I would believe you. It's so good. And however, I love the way this one's acted because this particular sermon felt like he was giving it on drugs, man. Eyes got all big and my boy was clammy, man. He was coming down off of a cocaine trip. I've been there, buddy. It's okay. Just let it wear off. You lose that energy. You lose those endorphins a little bit. It's fine. Just sweat it out, buddy. Just got to sweat it. Just got to sweat for a while. Anyway, I love it. Like I mentioned, cutting back to his visit of the Holy Lands really takes us away from getting, kind of trapped in in Crockett Island, right? I mean, we're kind of seeing now how he got in that area by himself. I'll never know, but he does have dementia, so things do happen. And I just want to obligatory every episode. Fuck off, Bev. Happened right here. That's all I'm going to say. Now, this is something I think the next 2 episodes do a great job of portraying on script. Hassan seeing that Bible in his son's backpack, and I can't imagine because I'm not in his shoes, would probably really upset me as well. Not because my son may have a different religion than me or like different thoughts or anything like that, but the fact that it's there and I don't know why. My first thought would be he got it at school. And so they touch on that, obviously, but I just think that little nod that they do there is such a great, well-written piece of the script where it's like, we're going to have to address this. But I don't think he's mad at him for being, if his son ended up being a Christian. I think it's more like, we haven't even talked about this. Where did you get this Bible from? Like, I really like where that ends up going. But I think just that little nod here was really well done. And again, the people in the town that I govern, essentially as the sheriff, basically trying to convert my son without my input would have me heated if I had a different religion. So I completely understand that. Last thing I have, this scene between Lisa and Joe literally had me tearing up. I mean, I fully mean that. This time when I watched, I took notes. I got watery-eyed because Joe is such a great character, man. And you can just see how relieved he felt once Lisa said, I forgive you. That is portrayed so well by Longstreet. Just incredibly acted, powerful performances by both people. It's phenomenal. Best scene of the series for sure.
Yeah, good job to show that Riley's demons are still present despite the uptick in miracles on the island and the upbeat scenes here. But hey, at least Buddy saw Aaron making eyes at him at church. Good for him. I like the montage in this set of scenes. It's absolutely filler and a way to show some stuff happening without having to write full scenes that would probably not be worth the payoff. This way is much better. Warren seeing Paul filling the chalice out of a flask, that was cause for concern. I'd be like, hey man, what are you doing over there? Another very well done sermon scene here. I know I said it last week, but this show definitely has the best sermons I can remember seeing in a movie or show, up until he passed out, of course. His confessional booth story was very captivating and broken up perfectly by the bright color or the bright light of Dr. Gunning. I thought that was well done. Good scene with the sheriff finding a Bible in his son's backpack. It's brief, but it plants good seeds there. Then, I know Joe's stomach fell through his rear end when he opened his door and saw Lisa. But my word, I thought she was showing up to say she forgives him, and she unloaded the clip. It's a very powerful scene. But honestly, to me, it feels a tad misplaced. Like, how much time has passed since he shot her and her telling him how she felt? Like, how much time had passed? She's just now doing that. I get her parents probably didn't let her go around him or whatever, but I don't know. But she does finally say she forgives him in the end there, and it's very emotional and raw, and it feels very authentic. I also, like I said, in the open, I don't get why the whole town hates Joe. Accidents happen. You can't make me believe he purposely shot her, and he obviously feels like crap over it and hasn't forgiven himself, so lay off the guy.
I will
This
say,
is a really good set of scenes.
Dustin, I agree with you that it's a little weirdly placed, but the whole story between them is weirdly placed. Like I mentioned in last week, we don't even really get a big reveal that that's what happened. Like no like dramatic scene between the two until this episode. But my only, kind of not, or I think my response is she didn't have the confidence to walk up to him or to come up to him until she could walk again. She had kind of like just been floating by or, like existing, like Riley said a couple episodes ago. And so I think her newfound confidence and being born again, touched by God, like in that way made her feel I can now go up to this guy and let him know how I feel while also forgiving him. So, I mean, definitely she's the only one that should be kind of mad at him. I agree with you there. Like the town can kind of kick rocks, in my opinion, on how they treat Joe. I think they only treat him like that because he's a town drunk. But I think he's only a town drunk because, well, he almost killed a kid, like he paralyzed one. So double-edged sword there. I agree with you that it's weirdly placed, but I think it was kind of And it goes on in episode 5, 6, and 7, just displaying her confidence as a character increasing, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very well done, and it was necessary. It advanced things nicely, and it kind of started that redemption arc that I was talking about with Joe. So yeah, it's fine. It just is
The
kind of
rest of the town can kick rocks.
I think if you would have had Joe accidentally kill her mother, then I think that everything would have made more sense. Like, it would have made more sense that she was so pissed off at him that she took away her mother that she could never get back. Just, I don't know. It was odd. I completely agree. Now that she's got her walking back, and so essentially he's not taking away anything, her reaction to that was odd.
Sure.
Like, it was
Yeah.
just seemed weird. We cut to a classroom scene where we see Bev talking to some angry parents who are mad that she sent a Bible home with all the kids. It seems as though the only thing standing in the way of Bev adding religion to their public school is Hassan, who makes a fair argument against it. He's much more patient than most people would be, as he explains he's not upset that his son is reading passages from the Bible, but he knows that if he gave out the Quran in school, Miss Keene would be in a tizzy, which is true. In response, she manages to give the most self-righteous sermon one has ever heard, with even Aaron trying to interrupt to no prevail. We cut to Aaron and Riley, and the two have a walk and talk. Aaron shares her frustration with bitch-ass Bev, while Riley tells her about his time in AA, and they flirt. Back at the Gunning house, Mildred is up and shares a very touching scene with Sarah, as it appears her dementia is no longer holding her hostage in the dark. We cut back to AA, and we are now a trio, as Joe has joined the group. "Hi, Joe," he says, as Joe laughingly replies, "So much for the anonymous part, eh, partner?" That made me laugh. Joe tells a story about Lisa, and Father Paul asks Riley for his input, to which he says he doesn't feel he's in a position to do that. Father Paul says, "That's bullshit," about 6 to 12 times, and says just to fucking do it without the F word part. The meeting continues, and as they leave, Father Paul falls to the ground, throwing up. We wrap up this set of scenes with a walk and talk between Joe and Riley, as Joe continues to open up to Riley. Why hasn't he left the island? Yeah, it felt too easy to leave, he says, and feels like he didn't deserve to get out, but now that he's attending AA and working towards forgiving himself, he might actually be able to start over. Both he and Riley are looking for change, but can't seem to find it, which is why Riley says life probably doesn't get any easier for them. But maybe if they keep trying, they can become different people. That hope is something Joe can work with. And as Dustin said, kind of sad once we know where it's going. Go ahead. And the next set of scenes is the ending.
Yeah, I don't have a lot here, just being honest, but I thought this classroom scene was a really good scene. I appreciated the perspective from Sheriff Hassan and Samantha Sloyan as Bev continues to shine with her rebuttals. Bev isn't getting it, though. The kids are allowed to discuss what happened at church. That's not the same as Bibles being given out by teachers and, that being taught in school as curriculum as a possibility. So I appreciate Sheriff Hassan's point of view. Good to see Joe joining the two at the AA meeting. We love to see someone trying to do better in life. I support everyone who's trying to do better. We should all be trying to do better. Joe is dropping the F-bombs and all kind of curse words in front of the father. Yikes. Well, never mind. Paul just said bullshit more than Kristen Bell did and forgetting Sarah Marshall. If you know, you know. Just me, but it's hard for me to take a pastor preacher seriously, though, who cusses. I don't know. I just hold them to a higher standard. This is the second or third time, I can't remember, of Bev's corruption being brought up. In such a small community, why has she been dealt with over this? Like, I don't know. Bully her ass, kick her out, throw her ass on the fucking ocean. This is the last thing I got. Joe is proving to be one of my favorite and more interesting characters. I hope he sticks around all season. He doesn't.
I
Spoiler
feel
alert.
like there's a
This guy.
complaint coming in episode 4. Can't wait. Can't wait. Okay. Man, shut the fuck up, Bev. Again, I know I already said that, but it needs to be said again here. Bitch ass. Anyway, of course he's not upset, or I don't think so, that his son is even interested in the Bible, or and again, I love the lesson that the Sheriff Hassan gives here on faith, his faith and his stories from that book, and a different perspective. And honestly, sidebar, one of the best classes I've ever taken was world religions my freshman year of college, because it was really interesting to learn about all of them from a non-religious text perspective. It's very interesting to just kind of sit back and learn about something when you can remove that aspect from it. But I like the religious aspect too. So it's not that. I just found it interesting. Anyway, Bev, Bev kind of put it all together was trying to be sarcastic, but she was actually correct. It's almost like, oh, you're almost there. Like you're kind of figuring out exactly what his problem is. And the sheriff is right. Like I'm consider myself a Christian and I agree with him. Like he's right to feel the way he does. And Bev is so full of it. Like, the context of what having the religious text sent home in a classroom means. It means something different than sending home a math book, a history book, a writing book. Like, it means something different, and that you're just being a prick. But I really like that scene. I thought it was deep, and again, I like what it ends up turning into as the rest of this one and the following episode go on. More walking and talking with Aaron and Riley, and again, this episode hasn't really been about them, so it was kind of nice to get a check-in. But I'm kind of glad we're on a break from these two being the main two, because they're definitely the main two in episode 4. And I put in here, remind Dustin, this is why they had a young person play Mildred. In my notes, I thought that I was like, I can't wait, because I know he's gonna think about it. He's gonna be like, damn it.
Well, all right then. Let me retract what I said then and just say that I thought the makeup and prosthetics didn't look good. It's fine to have a younger place, because it makes sense in the story. But I shouldn't be able to look and be like, dude, that woman's like 50 years younger than the woman
I
she's
guess that's
playing.
fair.
I shouldn't be able to.
Well, again, they didn't have the budget that, let's say, well, maybe they did have the budget that X and Pearl had. Fuck, I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe I'm wrong, because you could tell that's Mia Goth, but not really. I mean, not really. Anyway, yeah. No, that's a good example. And Mama's how Mama looked. I always thought that she looked young, but that was kind of the joke, right? Like you're kind of supposed to be able to tell, or at least I thought so. Anyway, I'll wrap it up here. I love that Paul actually calls Riley out and says bullshit. However, he sounds like one of those young hip pastors, one of the youth groups. Like, I say bullshit, man, it's fine. Like one of those things. Anyway, Joe comes up with like 6 different names for that building in a little bit of a rant. And I just laughed my ass off for all the crap he talked about Bev. I thought it was funny. The development for him as a character is so interesting. And like Nico said, I hope he sticks around for the entire series. There's last thing, there's a lot of people that are like Joe that don't realize how he was living his life was wrong. Not wrong, but in a bad way until it's too late. And that hits home with a lot of people, myself included. This monologue about his sister is heartbreaking. I could not imagine waiting until it was too late to realize I needed to reach out to her. I needed to go see her, and I just never did. And you have to kind of live with that. So Joe lives with a lot of guilt. He carries a lot of weight on his heart, and he's a very relatable character for sure.
Yeah, Bev, just miserable, man. She is a miserable person. She's the exact type of condescending Christian that give Christians a bad name. I love Aaron telling Riley to stop talking about himself like that. The seeds of love are planted and they're starting to sprout. It's beautiful to see. Rooting for those kids. We get a glimpse of another miracle with old hag Gunning, remembering things now. And then, man, Joe didn't mince his words in the meeting, did he? Man, cussing like a sailor right in front of Paul. But then Paul starts letting him fly. Unreal. And then, just look what the taste of that foul language made him do. Made him vomit when Riley and Joe left. Yeah. Joe's reaction when he realized Riley was being sincere when he said he was glad Joe was there, that was sad. Man has been hated by everyone for so long, and his reaction was just absolutely perfect. He's so thrown off that someone may potentially care about him. That was a great scene. This is a solid set of scenes to set us up for the ending.
Yep, here's that ending. Back at Sheriff Hassan's place, he and his son finish up praying, and Ali asks to go to St. Patrick's, to which Hassan refuses. Their Muslim faith ties back to his late wife. When he hears of miracles, it's insulting. Why would God cure Lisa but not his wife, who, while suffering with pancreatic cancer, continued to honor him? Faith is not magic, he says. He cuts off the light and then, bam, glowing eyes outside his window. We then see Bev having a meeting with Wade and Dolly when Father Paul enters and has a seizure on the floor, spitting up metallic blood. He then seemingly dies in front of them. Darkness, we hear Paul say, continuing his confessional story about Pruitt and the ruins. Monsignor manages to see a familiar pair of glowing eyes in the darkness until he strikes one match too many, and is met with a winged creature that sucks the fear and pain out of him. While this monstrosity seems evil in nature, Monsignor believes it was an angel who restored his youth. The man we see exit the ruin is Father Paul, who is really the young Monsignor Pruitt. This angel is what is in the trunk and who he thinks can help others become anew. And just when you thought the father might be dead, he reawakens. The miracle causes Bev to slip and call him Monsignor. And then we see that photo that had her in awe earlier in the episode, an old newspaper clipping that featured a photo of a young Pruitt, or should I say, Father Motherfucking Paul. Although the newspaper clip, sorry, you can't fucking tell who that is. It looks like goddamn John Travolta up there with a hat. Who knows?
Yeah, Sheriff is in a tough spot with his son wanting to go to church. That's not his religion. But I get it. I think he has bitterness in his heart over his wife's death. I can understand that. The loud thud when Sheriff Hassan looks out the window was a nice jump scare. It got me. This is one of the most violent and well-portrayed seizures I've seen. Linklater continues to impress me. I think he does a fantastic job. And it's weird because I know I'm going to get made fun of, but I haven't seen anything else he's been in. I don't know why he hasn't been in more that I've seen. I know last episode I brought up this possibly being a vampire or a creature feature type. I've done some research on this, and some people debate whether this is a vampire or an angel. But some have called this thing a jinn, possibly, saying it makes sense due to its Middle Eastern origin. And, I like that, just as a fan theory kind of thing. To me, this creature definitely gives off vampire vibes, though. No sunlight, must drink blood. Feeding its blood to a victim can convert it and keep it alive. We saw that in Abigail, and it gives me big vampire vibes. Nice reveal that Father Paul is actually Pruitt in a younger form. A lot of these townsfolk have been here their whole life. How did they not notice Paul looked like a younger Pruitt, though? Like, I don't know. I just don't get that. But that's all I got. Solid episode.
Yeah, one day it'll unmute quicker than that, although probably not. I agree with you guys a little bit where, I don't know. I think, how did nobody except, well, they kind of did. I guess Mildred does. Spoiler alert for episode 4. But, how did no one notice that he was a young Monsignor Pruitt? Like, I don't know. They look pretty damn identical to me. Yeah. Again, Mildred does. She's just not able to communicate that, which I touch on. Okay. I feel bad for her son here, but I definitely think it's worth, as a father and son, having a real discussion with your kid about this. I would probably let my son go to St. Patrick's, but I would go with him. And again, we see that's what ends up happening. Incredible monologue from Sheriff to Ollie here. Like, I really, again, props to him. I think with what he's given, he does a great job. And I think his delivery about his wife, his mom, and Ollie's mom, I think it's all really, really good, solid stuff, and gives us backstory to why the sheriff is so devout in his faith and what he believes. And, I like that, it's not a miracle. This is not magic. Why we're not devout for the miracles. It's not what it's about. So I like that we're having that conversation. But my friend Paul walked in just to pass out and die in front of everybody. That shit was crazy. Man, that's like a bad, like you hit the wrong little bit of acid, man. My man was like, hey, everybody, croaks. Like, Jesus Christ, that's scarring. Of course, we know what ends up happening. And the scene with Pruitt in the cave is some really good filmmaking, honestly. Like, I think they do a really good job with the cinematography and shooting this part. Like, I think it looks like a pretty decent movie quality scene. Like, I think they do a great job. And like I mentioned, I really just love the way these are shot. They take us out of Crocodile, and I think they're really well done. And the first time I was watching this, I was not expecting the actual vampire thing that we get. It threw me and Catherine way off. We're like, what the fuck is happening? what? Because everything else up to this point has been pretty damn grounded, right? Like, something's off about Crocodile, and we know that. Like, we don't know exactly what it's going to be. We definitely weren't expecting this. This thing looks like a fucking gargoyle for all I know. Like, what is this thing? Like, it's threw me way off. But I think Linklater is wonderful in these scenes during his confessionals. And I love the way it's shot. More good filmmaking, the way the window shadows on his face. Like, I think all that is really well done. And again, how do they not see that this guy looks like a young Pruitt just by that newspaper clipping? I mean, they're fucking twins. And somebody points it out, which is Joe. So anyway, that's all I had.
Yeah, it's a good scene with the sheriff and his son here. he was just in that meeting at the school saying how open to exploring knowledge that he was, but then he shuts his son down immediately. He was right, though. Scientology isn't magic. It's a cult. The face in the window was very startling. We're almost 52 minutes into the episode before we revisit the supernatural and scary elements of the story, though, which is kind of a bummer, but it's fine. The episode told a good story and it got us there. Then Paul's episode was shocking, but what was he puking up? Like you guys said, blood? Definitely didn't look like blood to me. It looked like paint. So I really hope it wasn't supposed to be blood. Didn't look good. Pruitt seeing the figure in the shadows was great. That scene was really well done with how he kept having to strike matches and the moments of darkness just like felt like eternity. And then we finally see the monster, the vampire, the angel, whatever you call it. All I know is that was one ugly bastard. The wood carvings that have been present as Paul was retelling the story, that was great too. They looked cool. That's all. The great review talk, as Nico likes to say. They just look cool. And then, holy plot twist, Finkel is Einhorn. Paul is Pruitt. It's just, it's
Nice.
so crazy. You guys have already said it, but I'm going to say it too. It's so crazy that no one noticed, especially since young Pruitt's picture is on the newspaper hanging on the wall. Bev spends more time in that church than anyone. And all which, whatever, discard Bev. But the rest of the people that are in and out or around town or have lived there their whole lives, they've seen pictures of young Pruitt. No one noticed it. In that tight-knit community, I'm not buying it. But regardless, it's a really good ending to a really good episode. I gave it an 8.5.
Absolutely. Do you have any fun facts to go with this one, Dustin?
I do
Nico?
not.
Mike? Okay, I just have the one. The last scene of the episode, a shot zooming in on the newspaper of young Monsignor Father Paul before cutting to a close-up of his face, is an homage to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Mike Flanagan, creator of the series, is a big fan of Stephen King and even directed the sequel to The Shining, Doctor Sleep, to which we all love. All right, let's jump into the next episode here. Book 4, Lactations. No, that's fucked up. I shouldn't have said that.
Come on, man.
What
sorry,
an
sorry.
asshole.
Sorry. We open up with Erin getting a routine sonogram and chatting about the pregnancy and the parts she's looking forward to the most when it's written all over Sarah's nervous face that something seems off. But in a heartbreaking turn of events, there's nothing there. The baby has disappeared from her womb without a trace. Sarah tells her she must have miscarried, but Erin knows that she didn't. We know she didn't either, but that doesn't mean we know what happened. We cut to the church where Mass has been canceled for the day and Bev won't shut the fuck up. Father Paul is fresh off of a resurrection of his own, having a little trouble explaining what's going on himself. I feel everything that is happening here is a matter of faith, not science, he tells Bev. He also basically says he wants to be left the fuck alone to pray, and Bev responds by basically telling him that she won't keep a secret forever. She wants him to know that an angel of God restored him. We are then shown that his left hand burns when he sticks it in sunlight. How very goth of him. Speaking of sunlight, Ed and Riley are out on the boat when he tells him to sit the fuck down and that he's harbored resentment towards him for a long time. Basically apologizing and tells Riley that he loves him, and then they want to head back. I don't think they did anything on that boat. Maybe we missed it. We cut back to Dr. Sarah's office, and her mama comes in looking rather young and youthful. And we see Erin's blood boiling in the sun via a sample in the vial when we jump to Erin and Riley sitting on her floor. Erin is cleaning to take her mind off her terrible loss, and she tells Riley how her mom felt that motherhood clipped her wings and kept her from flying free. Her mom's bitterness and abuse led her to run away, yet she couldn't get away from her mother and ended up marrying a man just like her. It was the baby that forced her to leave him to save herself. She's now left wondering, what was it all for? Why God allows suffering is something Riley has been struggling to understand himself. Watching Erin grieve allows him to open up about his recurring dream. He's stuck in the middle of the sea without a paddle. He can't get to the shore to start a new life. All he gets is a sunrise, but he never can see further. He believes it's a sign that he can never leave the island. He's utterly hopeless. Yet when Erin asks him to pray with her, he does.
I love the opening with Kate and Annabeth. I'm a big fan of both of these ladies. I had the great pleasure of meeting Annabeth Gish at Spooky Empire last year. She was super nice, so shout out to her. Just wanted to shout that out. This is a hell of an opening. You trying to tell me her baby just disappeared from her uterus? How does that happen, Sway? Something about doctors telling you or questioning if you blocked out your experience, that's got to be like the worst form of gaslighting, right? Admittedly, I don't think Dr. Sarah was intending it that way, but I just hate when that happens. Paul and Bev, I don't think this is a hot take, but these two carry this show, and I'm always locked in when these two are on the screen. This is a hot take here, though, and I'm probably going to get some hate mail from my co-host and listeners, but I think Henry Thomas and Zach Gilford were miscast in this show. I don't buy Henry as his hard-ass fishing boat dad, and I struggle to connect to Zach as Riley. I think Oliver Jackson Cohen, Luke from Hill House, would have been better as Riley. He's already shown that he's had, his addiction issues and recovery. And I also think Robert Longstreet may have been a better choice for Riley's dad. That doesn't mean I don't think he was good as Joe Colley, but I don't know. I just didn't buy Henry personally. We pointed out Alex Esso portrayed a much older woman to be Sarah's mother, and after finishing the season, it makes a lot of sense why now. She looks a lot younger in this scene as her daughter questions her. The blood sample exploding in the vial, that was a good jump scare. Got a good pop out of me on my first watch. I didn't do any research on this, but this has to be like a subtle homage to 1982's A Thing, because I remember that jump scare and it scared the hell out of me. Tough to hear Aaron's mom thought she was such a burden to her. That was rough. And another hot take, but Aaron and Riley's back and forth monologues, they lose me. They drag on and on to me. And I'm really wishing we back with Paul, Bev, or Joe. I thought it was a decent opening, but after the opening, sonogram scene, I don't know. I just wasn't that invested.
Hard disagree on the casting, but I respect it. I always respect your opinions, brother. Always. Unless you're talking shit about Michael Myers, of course. One thing about this show is some plot points go a whole episode and that happens again later without being mentioned, and you kind of forget. So we're so used to Aaron and Riley being the main characters. We get to episode 3 and they're not. They're in like one scene together for just, like a minute or so. Spent a lot of time with the church side of things, the religious context, and the town in the last episode. And I kind of forgot Aaron was pregnant in the first place. Not gonna lie, like I know it was only one episode, but going so long in between watching them and then taking notes, I'm like, oh yeah, she's pregnant, and that's the whole point of this opening scene. I kind of forget Aaron being pregnant. I kind of forget about the Flynns in general, right? Like I know they're in the last episode, especially like the dance scene, but they don't really speak very much. And so it's not focused on them. And then here you get a lot of it. So I just think it's interesting how the show kind of, and it did it for Hill House too, right? Where like each episode was kind of focused on a central one character at a time moment for the most part. I like it. It's a different way. Luckily, this show doesn't jump back and forth as much as Hill House did. That's my preference anyway. The nonlinear storytelling really throws me off because I'm an idiot. But, I like that someone, Bev, here is finally acknowledging that this guy is a young Pruitt. Like, all right, I kind of figured something wasn't right here, but now I see it. Now I know. What are we going to do about this? And honestly, you could just tell when Pruitt, Paul, whatever, is talking that she's damn near jealous that this holy experience didn't happen to her. Like, she wants to know why. She's been such a good Christian woman, according to herself. How come this didn't happen to me? So, very interesting to see. And honestly, this is a gut punch of a talk between dad and son. And I actually wholeheartedly disagree. I think that Henry Thomas does a great job in this scene portraying how he feels. And honestly, nothing was really needed from Zach as an actor. Just, facial expressions. He tries to talk, but Ed won't let him. And I think it's a really, really powerful scene between father and son. And we kind of needed it from a narrative standpoint. Like, tired of seeing this family beef. I think he suffered enough, his son, and I think it was time to kind of move on from that point. Now, if I were the doctor here, that blood vial cracking would have me thinking we had another bad, fucking Ebola thing going around, man. That would send me into a tailspin if I happened to see that. If somebody's blood boiled all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, okay. Honestly, I like this walking and talking scene, this one in particular, because I think Siegel was really, really good, right? This monologue from her, sorry, they're sitting, but whatever. This monologue from her about clipped wings, her mom, her ex, the drugs she was on, losing her baby. I think all of it is so damn good. And it really sucks me into their conversation. And like I've said, I just think these two have really good on-screen chemistry. I'm used to seeing Guilford as Matt Saracen from Friday Night Lights. So seeing him in this role, which is a little more dramatic, and he does it in Friday Night Lights too, but this very different character from Matt Saracen, I think he does a good job. I think this really the next set of scenes is a lot of really great character work.
Yeah. First of all, Lamentations is the 25th book. Anyway, really heartbreaking scene with Aaron at Dr. Sarah's. Sarah does a good job hiding her concern for a moment, and Aaron does a good job picking up on it and showing her concern. And wild turn of events that the baby is just gone altogether. Strange happenings afoot, that's for sure. Sturge looking at young Pruitt's picture on the wall is exactly what I meant last episode. How has no one noticed? Then, I get it, Paul. I wouldn't want to eat Bev's food either. She strikes me as the kind of white woman who doesn't season her food, unless it's poison, of course. Seeing his arm sizzle in the sunlight, that was a good touch too. Odd that it's just now taking effect, though, to me. Like, given how much time has passed since his transformation, have we not seen him out in the daylight and the sun didn't have an effect? I don't know. A really authentic moment with Ed and Riley on the boat, emotional stuff. I mean, the dad doesn't really know how to express himself, but he's trying, and he says it in a hurtful way, but doesn't mean to. I thought it was good. Back at the Gunnings, and we see the old bag of bones looking noticeably younger and sharp as a tack. But the big development is Aaron's blood sizzling and then evaporating. Like, we're getting into the thick of it. Pretty traumatic childhood Aaron had. That was hard to hear. Mom was a real peach. Her and Riley just going trauma for trauma. That was heavy stuff to end this set of scenes. Solid open.
Old bag of bones. Jesus Christ. At the start here, we reconvene with Father Paul, who is also repeating the Lord's Prayer, which was a sweet-ass transition from Riley and Aaron praying at the end of the last set of scenes. But my man is having those really bad stomach cramps, like when you eat a sausage dog from the gas station, like real bad. And when he unclutches his rosary, his hand begins to bleed, and like a vampire, he sucks his own blood. So now we have sunlight, youth. Could it be? Surely not. Well, we have Wolverine powers too, and his hand instantly heals up. We get another prayer transition, but this time to Joe, who is having a battle of his own, face to face with some old Milwaukee. And my man is feeling like Stone Cold Steve Austin right now. The sheriff asks how his night is going to be tonight, and Joe responds, "How the shit should I know?" It made me laugh. He tells the beer freezer, "Fuck you," and heads out. We cut to Father Paul leaving the little fucking, I don't know, tabernacle or whatever it is. Cottage, I guess. Fucking whatever that is. Dustin, you can probably tell me what that is. But anyway, Paul is on the move and heads over to see the old lady, not the old bag of bones, goddamn, who is looking even younger now and recognizes instantly that he is the Monsignor. And am I picking up a little bit of a spark between the two of them? Maybe that hesitation when Sarah asked about her father's name was a bit more. I don't know. But anyway, what we do know is that the mass he's been giving her is a special concoction of blood that is restoring everyone. I bet that wine tastes like pennies. I'll just say that. Back at Aaron's, Riley tells her that he understands why it is nice to believe in a higher power. Riley believes that our final moments of life are like the dream to end all dreams. He imagines a future in which his life has meaning and where he isn't a murderer, but a giver of life. Erin dreams of her unborn child in heaven, where she finally wakes up to find true happiness and love. The two hold hands, and that's the end of this set of scenes.
Oh, man. All right, back to Paul. Let's go. Maybe I need to explain to me like I'm 6, but how does Paul drinking his own blood heal himself? Is that a part of vampire lore I just don't understand or I missed out on? I don't know. Now we're with another favorite of mine, Mr. Joe Colley. I think he does a very good job portraying the struggling alcoholic facing his demons. Good for him to walk away from the cola or beer. Good job, Mr. Robert Longstreet. Miss Mildred has a little pep in her step in this encounter with Paul. She seems smitten as rubbing his hands way more than she should with just a regular priest. What's going on here, Brian? No offense again, but I just can't get into Riley and Aaron's next round of monologues. I apologize, but I'm really not connected to either character. This scene between Aaron and Riley started at the 27-minute mark and ended 10 whole minutes later. I'm sorry, but we spent way too much time in this episode with just these two chit-chatting. Sorry, hot take.
Man, it's
You know how you can always tell when someone knows that they're on the wrong side of history because he just apologized like 6 times for that statement. So it's okay.
Fuck
well,
off.
you know what, Nico? I guess you just wouldn't get it. Anyway, sorry, I had to do it. That gets done to me. That's
It was
what I'm
pretty
saying.
elevated
Well,
conversation.
You know, I consider this an elevated horror episode. You just wouldn't get it, buddy. I love the usage from Paul saying the Lord's Prayer here. 6 transition, like you mentioned, Brian. And again, I think deep down he knows this isn't the quote unquote work of angels, but maybe he's figured he can use it for good? Question mark. I don't know. He seems like a man torn to me, honestly. And again, by the end of the episode, maybe not so much, but there's definitely a little bit of that here. I think this is a powerful little moment for Joe that gets overlooked, not buying the beer, right? Especially with Hassan standing right there. Like this would typically be what happens between these two. Again, this has to be so fucking eerie for Mildred and Paul / Pruitt here. Just reuniting. One's young, one's in the process of de-aging, and she recognized it was him. She was the one. She couldn't communicate it because she was quote unquote in a dark place in her head because she has dementia. Now she's cured and de-aging and getting younger like himself, like Paul, and she knows that that's him, that's Pruitt, and the moment between them is very interesting, and in a way it's touching. We don't really know everything about their history yet, but we're definitely going to. And again, no one would have believed Mildred, I don't think, if she said, "Hey, that's young Monsignor Pruitt. That looks just like him." I think everyone like, "Yeah, okay, lady," kind of thing, dismissive of her because of her condition. So again, her being the only one that recognized him, not being able to say it, I think makes sense. Actually, another good scene with Riley and Aaron. This is probably the first time in the show, because just the religious themes and talks and all these things. It's probably the first time in the show that something is broken down in a very cold, scientific, lack of a better term, matter of fact way that Riley does. Like he pretty much just he. And I know Dustin will appreciate this. And I think we all know, but he pretty much just matter of factly, to sum it up, he does the old Vince McMahon, life sucks and then you die, as Vince McMahon said multiple times here, which, not that we hype him up or anything, fuck that guy, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, again, I really like their dialogue back and forth here. It felt like a real conversation that people have, when they're deeply connected. Like, what are your thoughts on life and death and hopes and dreams and, things like that. I think it was very interesting. It's set to a light piano version of the hymn Nearer My God to Thee, which is the same hymn that played as the Titanic was sinking, reportedly. And so it's a brilliant usage of it, right? To kind of combat what Riley's saying, to kind of have that soft hymnal playing in the back, I thought was really good. And he used the term big blue sad rock, and that's a tough way to go through life, in my opinion, to view the world that way. A lot of great dialogue here, but I think it's really well done.
Yeah. Paul, man, Paul's going through it here. That's what Mike's stomach sounded like in the back seat of the Uber before he soiled my front porch.
Hey, buddy, what you mean is every morning.
Pretty gnarly stuff.
When I take pre-workout, that's what it sounds like. Help me.
Pretty gnarly stuff with him digging into his hand here. The score picks up intensity nicely in the following scenes, and it comes to a head nicely with Mildred recognizing Pruitt. And then, Aaron tried to sneak it in, but I caught it. She told Riley she loved him. Atta boy, Riley. And now you don't have to be a stepfather. Talk about hitting the lottery. Pretty bleak and depressing outlook that Riley has here. Aaron's is depressing too, but in a completely different way. She's mourning. This is just a good set of scenes to advance the story.
Back at Father Paul's, this man is in his own personal hell, and this guardian angel prayer he keeps reciting isn't doing shit. Joe interrupts him to tell him that he's struggling with his willpower and sees the photo on the wall. Joe immediately thinks that he's the illegitimate son of Monsignor Pruitt or something, and calls him out on his fucking around in his younger days and wants to just get the hell out of there. As Joe goes to leave, though, Paul brings him in for a Joe Biden hug as Paul gets a little sniffy of Joe's neck. Joe pulls away, falling into a desk, cracking his head open like a coconut. Oh, and it's on, as Paul starts to lap up the blood and feast on his brains with a fresh Chianti and some fava beans. It's definitely vampire o'clock around here. We cut back to Aaron's, and Riley is waking up. He tells her that he had the same dream, but that she was in the boat with him this time. She tells him that she's not going to go to church. She's going to go to the mainland and get another opinion, and tells him that he should come back later that night. And the next set of scenes is the ending.
Yeah, I don't have much on this set. My dog Paul is crashing out big time right now. It's pretty ironic the town drunk walks in on the priest chugging the wine, though, isn't it? Father Paul gets caught chugging wine and he lies to Joe he's under the weather. Give me a break, man. You're not drinking fucking Pedialyte over there. Shout out Joe for finally noticing Paul looks like the same as Monsignor Pruitt. He's on to something. Finally, somebody catches on to this shit. Paul is acting really odd. If I'm Joe, I'm hitting the old Dusty Trail real quick right now. This hug is lasting way too long and is very sketchy. I almost had to hit the pause on this one. This is a good scene with Joe busting his head open and Paul drinking the blood, but damn it, I'm sad Joe is a goner now. I thought it was a really striking visual, Paul drinking the blood directly from his head. Like, this is some wild priest behavior. Like, he's on some freak shit. This is what they did in the Bohemian Grove, it seems like, from Late Night with the Devil. Last thing I got, Mike, last thing on this set of scenes, I like the camera work and the camera angles as it cuts back and forth between Riley and Aaron. That's some really good review talk, but, hey, I pointed out I like it. Fuck it.
I'm honestly not sure how I feel or what to make of the stuff with Paul Pruitt, whatever you want to call it there, because again, I've made my feelings known about Vampire Arc or whatever, and it's being, kind of presented as angels too. Like, again, just, I'm not sure what to make of it. I like the story that's being told about, he can kind of quote unquote do miracles and all that stuff, but just interesting that I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Anyway, Joe is such a great fucking character though, man. His ability to quote unquote be the town drunk, but also be sometimes the smartest person in the town, sift through the bullshit. Like, oh man, you could be his son. He smart guy, knows something's up, knows something's a little fishy, just doesn't know what. And Longstreet does a great job playing a relatable character, man. I love this character. And again, then we fucking kill him. Damn it, man. What's going on here? Anyway, I kind of forget that we have this feeding stuff because, again, I forget about the vampire stuff and all that. But I forget we have this scene where he feeds on him like this. I don't mind it, but again, everything else is just so grounded and it feels very introspective. And some of this stuff is a little out there, a little bit wonky. But again, that's the point of the show. But I think it's good, and I think the gore and everything in it also looks really, really good. So that's all I had.
Yeah, I don't really like how we just skip over Paul's meeting with Mildred. Like, last time we saw them, it led us to believe they were going to have a detailed talk catching up, and then he's just back at home struggling. Tough look when Joe goes to Paul because he's been struggling and finds him hitting the bottle like Derrick Henry hits the A-gap. And him seeing the newspaper on the wall. Come on. We went 3 episodes with no one noticing, and now the whole village is seeing it all at once. And then, man, talk about a sad ending. My dog was finally turning his life around, and he didn't get to see it through. But imagine bleeding out, and all you can do is watch the town priest drink your blood. Like, what a wild way to go.
Crazy.
My dog, Riley, he is in there. Quote, you can come back later if you want. Boy, I'd be there waiting as soon as church was over. I'll just be waiting. But I'm ready for the ending here.
All right, here's the ending. We open up this last set of scenes in the sheriff's house, and his son is going to church, and he's not thrilled about it. Speaking of church, it's packed. The organist is playing, and Father Paul is nowhere to be seen. Bev goes looking, finds him the next morning covered in Joe's blood. She doesn't flinch because she's the goddamn Antichrist, but she is put off by the sign of his skin burning in the sun. Still, she's more than willing to help him get rid of the dead body. So, to do so, she employs Wade and Hagrid from Harry Potter, who the fuck is this guy, and actually does a pretty impressive job convincing them to do so. Back at the mainland, the doctor doesn't believe Erin was ever pregnant and basically says there was never a baby. Wow. Later that evening, Riley joins Father Paul at the AA meeting. The two agree that it's okay to question God's plan. He asks about Joe and is told that he's off island visiting his sister. Riley knows it's bullshit and can't concentrate on anything at dinner. He goes back to the rec room to confront Joe, but he sees Paul with the angel creature in Indiana Jones' fedora. He sees what we've all suspected. The creature is emptying his blood into the pitcher, the sacrament. The angel creature leaps on Riley, and as he begins to bite him and drink his blood, Father Paul shuts the door, and we have 3 episodes left.
I appreciate the father-son dynamic between Hassan and Ali. You can tell there's a big struggle going on inside of dad with his son going to mass. I haven't given him enough props, but the actor, I'm sorry I don't know his name right offhand, but the actor who portrayed Sheriff Hassan was great. Bev, I already know, is a psychopath, but how is she so mellow seeing Joe's corpse on the floor of the priest's house? She's relatively calm seeing he has vampire flesh too. Like, this chick is weird. I can't compliment Samantha Sloyan enough. She really does command the screen every time she's there. Wade has a believable reaction, which I'm thankful for, and Bev hits him with a Bible verse quickly, very on character for her. The way she speaks on Joe really speaks on her character and her true self, though. Like, you know, I hate to be, bring up the whole judging thing, but she was pretty judgmental of old Joe. This doctor experience with Aaron is insane. I get where the doctor is coming from, but to tell a woman she was never pregnant who clearly was is crazy talk. I wish the show would have taken the approach more of she's more shocked than the patient is crazy route, personally. If I'm Riley and I see Paul standing there like he was on the porch, I'm dipping. Normal people don't make that pose, man. Like, I'm getting the hell out of there. Ed looks visibly younger, as do a lot of these town folks. How did they not notice this shit? Like, y'all don't look in a mirror? Screen poster on the wall. I'm sure we all noticed that. Hell yeah. Mom preaches to Riley and he's not having it. I wonder how Annie is truly feeling hearing him call Paul a liar. Big props to the Midnight Mass team. This might be weird to say, but the hands of the vampire is very creepy looking and well done. Riley, you ever heard the term "fuck around and find out"? Well, you're about to, sir. You should have went to Aaron's house, not the AA meeting room, because your life is fucked. I can't lie. Can't lie. My first watch, this vampire flying to Riley that jump scared the hell out of me. I don't know how he did it, but I knew it was coming. It still scared me. I thought it was a good episode with a good ending.
Man,
All wrong.
this would be hard, but I respect Hassan here as a man and father for not only letting his son go, again, for all the reasons I've already talked about, but going with him, like I mentioned, like, all right, for you. So you have no problem, having your options open and, exploring that education. I think it's great. And again, I'm glad that he went with him. That's awesome. I mean, these people here are a little delusional, right? This is clearly not the work of angels or an angel. Again, this, I'm talking about Bev in particular here. The man's hands catch on fire when the sun hits his skin. Like, what are we doing? And by the way, why is Bev so prepared to dump this dead body? Huh? Wonder what that could be about. How do you know exactly what to do with a dead body? Interesting, Bev. That's all I'm going to say, you fucking asshole. Again, but this also goes to show you what people like Bev think of people they deem lesser than them, right? I mean, again, she's just willing to, all right, we'll dump Joe here. No one cares about him. Who cares? Well, that's not true. Like Dustin has mentioned, this guy was on an arc to redeem his life, to claim it back, to not hate himself. And his death is a sad one. And to see Bev, great performance, by the way, but to see Bev basically nonchalantly like, yep, let's get the fuck out of here. Or excuse me, let's get him the fuck out of here. God, I hate this woman. I hate this woman so much. And again, she's doing exactly what she's telling the people in the room not to do, which is cherry picking the work of God. She's doing exactly what she doesn't want these people to do. So very interesting hypocrite there. And fuck, it would be devastating for someone to basically think you were crazy that you were pregnant when you know damn well you were pregnant. Like, that would drive me insane to no end. And I like that we get back to being a little more grounded with this conversation with Paul and Riley. I love that Riley catches his ass in a lie. And I think it's portrayed well by Guilford here, just like his sister, right? Because he knows he's had this conversation with Joe. Joe's sister is dead, so that's impossible that he would go, quote unquote, see her. I guess you could go see her grave, right? But again, that's not going to work for me, brother. I like that we know and we can tell that Riley has also figured it out. It's a great scene with mother and son here with Annie and Riley. The two things really going against each other. You could tell that she's happier than she's been in a long time. Maybe she feels like this dark cloud that hangs over their family because of Riley has been lifted. And then it's met with Riley's skepticism. And he's telling the truth that Paul lied to him. Paul did lie to him. So those two things combating each other, I think, are really well done. And it's setting the groundwork for another scene between the two later in the series. And Nico, you're right. Holy shit, this thing is creepy, man. This is a creepy looking creature. These hands are fucking freaky. This looks like a little bit of a Nosferatu, the hands and the cloak and all that stuff. Except this looks a little creepier to me. And the fucking best part of this episode is the last line in this whole episode is Paul going, "Oh." as Riley shows up and then it gets fucking attacked by this vampire thing. Oh, like, all right, yeah, go. I guess I'll go fuck myself then. Or he basically just accepted Riley. He basically just accepted Riley's fate then, right? Like, okay. Oh, sorry, guy. You walked in at the wrong time. So I thought it was well done. Great episode.
Yeah, when the sheriff and his son are talking, all I could look at was that Nintendo Entertainment System on the shelf above the TV. Boy, I wanted to fire it up and play some Battletoads right then. I don't know if you guys ever played Battletoads, but that game was great.
Yep.
And then, dang, Ed, you really think now is the best time to talk about where Riley was last night? In the middle of church with the pews jam-packed with the whole island? Some privacy, please. God. I got a good laugh at Paul's reaction when Bev said, "We've got to get you cleaned up into the church." He said, okay, here's the thing. And then showed her a sizzling skin party trick. That was funny to me. I like the way he did that. Bev just proves that she's the worst next. Like, she wants Sturge and Wade to just dump Joe's body. And I know one thing. If she slapped me like that, she would have had an impression of 4 knuckles across the bridge of her nose. I don't play that. I don't condone hitting women, but she sucks. And if she slapped me like that unprovoked, she might just catch an instinctive reaction. Aaron at the doctor on the mainland, that was a baffling scene. Imagine what Aaron felt like in that moment. Like, to know for a fact that you were pregnant. And then a doctor arguing with you that you never were. Like, I get what you're saying, Nico, but at the same time, like, I don't know, it's very believable. The doctor would be like, no, this woman's deranged. She's crazy. She thinks she was pregnant. But anyway. Riley seeing Paul on the porch, that was funny. Buddy looked creepy just standing there, the way that he looked, and then the way that he looked at the sky as he stepped off the steps. Just vile and cold of Paul to lie to Riley's face about Joe. Like, he messed up, though. Riley knows about Joe's sister. The plot thickens. Good scene with Riley and his mom as he headed out to Aaron's. Very believable mother-son dynamic with the dialogue being as well written as it was. Paul's pacing the floors as the trench coat vampires showed up. That was intense. But I can't lie. Something about the vampire wearing a fedora and a trench coat just took me out of it. Like, it was funny to me, and it shouldn't have been funny. After that, Riley, my guy, priorities. Forget Joe and Paul. Get in there with Aaron, dog. Too late, though. Don't went and got yourself vampired. Really good episode. The story's heating up. I gave it an 8 3/4.
There we go.
Dustin, do you think the vampire's look would have been better with a full mustache?
Yes.
Anybody got any trivia on this
sir.
one?
No, sir.
All right, I've just got one. When Father Paul pays a visit to Mildred to perform that at-home Eucharist, she's reading a copy of The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is a novel about a man who exchanges his soul for eternal youth and beauty.
Nice.
Nice. And that's it there. Take it away, Nico.
All righty. 3
Let's
and 4,
go.
Midnight Mass is done. We'll be back next week with episodes 5 and 6. I'm excited for it. We appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
Just want to remind everybody,